the Lions have been really powerful home favorites against bottom feeders. All right. We look at Detroit already this year. They beat Cleveland by 24 last week. They beat Chicago by 31 in their two previous games as home favorites. Now they face a Cincinnati team that is reeling, coming off another disaster performance, back-to-back disasters for the Bengals. The last one on national TV on Monday night, giving them a short week to travel to Detroit. How do we break it down? Can the Bengals hang around in this one, or do we just lay it with the Lions? Let's talk about it with a big game breakdown. Teddy covers from wagertalk.com. And right now, looking at my odds logic live odds screen for Detroit and Cincy. Look, it's been all Lions money. The pros have already bet Detroit. The Joes are starting to pile on. The books will have a lot of Lions liability in this ball game, and they're going to have parlay liability on the Lions. It's a late game. It's not an early game. So that makes it even more likely that the books are going to face a fair bit of they'll have a big rooting interest in this one. I'll leave it at that. When the pros and Joes line up, when the parlays line up on that same side, like this is gonna, and when it's a late game standing apart from the others, yeah, the books will need Cincinnati badly for this one. But looking at the odds logic live odds screen, I'm seeing Detroit minus 10.5 popping up. There's still some 10s out there, but it's mostly 10.5. Total sitting 49.5 for Detroit and Cincy. And I want to talk about what the Lions did at home last year, because I think it's relevant for this matchup. It's not the same Lions team, but it's an MO from Dan Campbell. And Detroit had some big blowouts last year. They beat Jacksonville by 46 on this field. They beat Tennessee by 38, two games where they scored in the 50s. They beat Seattle by double digits. But they also had a lot of closer than expected results. They lost at home to Tampa. The Rams took them to overtime. We saw last year, and again, last year too much down the stretch. Chicago gave them a battle. Green Bay gave them a battle. They lost to Buffalo at home. Yeah, and obviously they lost in the playoffs at home as well. So before we get too excited about the Lions' home field, you have to know that, yeah, long term and even shorter term, it's much closer to 50-50 than pure dominance. My clients and I had Cincinnati on Monday Night Football with my only loser this past week in the NFL. And it was wrong. It couldn't have been more wrong. Or it could have, the Bengals were a disaster in that ballgame. I wasn't the only one that watched it. You all watched it too. And now it's back-to-back weeks for the Bengals where they were just wiped off the field. All right. Those back-to-back weeks for Cincinnati came against two of the elite defenses. And two of the elite defensive coordinators. Certainly Denver's defense has been dominant. Vance Joseph is someone that we trust. And for Minnesota, their defense has been dominant as well. Brian Flores is a coordinator that we trust. Detroit's defense isn't of that caliber. All right. They're not as good as those two defenses. That said, Jake Browning's been throwing interceptions and struggling from the get-go. But when you have a team off these type of embarrassments, all right, one of two things happens. One is they're done. You can stick a fork in them. If Cincy plays this week like they played last week and the week before, we could see, the Zach Taylor rumors will rumble. Maybe he goes. Who knows? Cincinnati certainly hasn't been the type of team that's attracted a big groundswell of betting support. Their offensive line's been a disaster so far this season. Defensively, they're not particularly good. It's hard to make a case for Cincy. The only case I can make is, hey, this team's been awful on national TV, and there's a little bit of value there, and the books are really going to need them because pros and Joes are lining up on the other side. And that's a case. That's a legit case. You say, all right, if the Bengals lose by 10, at plus 10.5, you still cover. And one would think, off the type of losses they've had the last couple of weeks, that the effort's there this week for Cincy. They were embarrassed. Everyone was embarrassed. And when you hear guys calling out their teammates, that's not a bad thing. We heard Chase say it the other day. That he's not mad at his teammates. He wants people to be mad. It's okay to be pissed off when you get crushed. So anyhow, it's hard to take Cincinnati plus the points. We know how good Detroit is. We know how good Detroit can be. We know that Detroit, they don't win all of these games by big margins, but when Detroit gets going, they can certainly take care of business. That said, next week, they got Kansas City. That's a little bit of a look ahead. Coming off a blowout, Chiefs up next. I would not be surprised at all here if Detroit gets a lead and sits on it and doesn't end up covering the number. I'll go with the house in this one. I really will. All right? It's hard for me to get to the window with the side that everyone sees and likes. All right? Pros and Joes? Yeah, I'll go the other way. Cincy, plus the points. It's not pretty. It's not easy. But as a capper who's been in Vegas since 1998, seen enough football, seen enough NFL to know teams aren't as bad as they looked last week. Teams aren't as great as they looked last week. Cincy to lose by 10 or less. Give me the Bengals plus the points. Running pretty good, no question about it. It's been a good couple of weeks in college football, in the NFL, in Major League Baseball, 70% all sports run. Check out my homepage, wt.buzz/TC, and get on board. Again, when you're running good in every sport that you do, these weekend warrior packages for $49, great deal. Weekly packages, monthly packages, seasonal packages, year-long packages. If you want to get on board, I encourage you, don't buy a play, and I do have a 5% big ticket in college this weekend. Don't buy it. Get on board with the package. Let's partner up and see if we can make some money together. Again, 70% all sports run over the last 2 weeks, and I plan on winning again this weekend. wt.buzz/TC. Thanks for watching. Best of luck with your bets, and stay tuned right here on this channel for more quality video content. Cheers.